Hey everyone, this is the Lazy Paddler Investing Show,
I'm Rajal Baya,
and I'm Harlan Bea.
and today we've got a real heart-pounding Halloween special for you all.
Ooh, it's spooky.
Oh yeah.
So we own this stock and we believe in it. Um, and one of the cool things about this company is it is a small company. So small companies can be real big opportunities for real retail investors. Um, a lot of times because they're hidden. A lot of people don't realize they're out there. They're not well covered. In fact, like right now, there's not a lot of investment analyst coverage on TransMedics. There's not a lot of shows about TransMedics. So hopefully, the information we're giving you today gives you a little bit of insight into that company, and you can make your own decisions about whether you're interested in investing in them, or maybe you have a friend or family member, or maybe even you who might be interested in their services. They provide some really cool services, which we'll talk about in a second. But one of the most important concepts about like investing in small companies, and in this case, the market cap of TransMedics is under, or it's just around $1.7 billion today. One of the things about that is that like big fund managers, mega pension managers, owners of large mutual funds, they can't really invest in a company like this without triggering SEC rules that say, hey, you're now a big owner of that organization. You have to, you have all these extra responsibilities for ownership. Us little small fry investors, we can invest, a few dollars into it, and it makes a big, big difference to us if it does well. So, yeah, we're small investors talking to other small investors, and hopefully y'all participate in the comments.
So, um, with all that in mind, today's company is TransMedics, our favorite extracorporeal organ preservation company.
So TransMedics, they're just hearts pumping in a box, right?
Not
Doo-doom,
just hearts in
doo-doom,
boxes.
doo-doom, doo-doom.
Great audio demonstration there. They also do lungs and livers, so we got a bit of breathing action too.
Yeah, yeah, and like if you look at the videos, there's like blood everywhere. Excuse me. There is warm perfusion fluid everywhere.
Very important distinction. Very important. So, TransMedics, they are a medical technology company that produce organ care systems, or OCSs, as they like to call it in their official media. These organ care systems are essentially large box-like structures that are designed to keep organs, the kinds that you use for organ transplants, not exactly the other kind of organ sale. Um, for
No, not
they
those
keep
organs.
them. They use warm perfusion, which is to keep organs alive, essentially. Like they preserve organs by keeping them in a semi-living state inside of these special organ care system platforms. And so that essentially means like you've got these big rolling boxes that practically have beating hearts that are literally being pumped with essentially a blood-like substance in the fluid. So they're literally beating in the box.
Yeah, and the lungs are breathing, and the livers are producing uh, bile, I believe.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
so.
And they're tracking it all the time, right? So they've got a doctor there beside it that's keeping track of it. They have like a wireless monitoring device that goes with each of these that they can hold on to and keep an eye on how the electricity flowing through the heart to keep it going, the amount of bile that's being produced by the liver, making sure that the lungs are still breathing properly. So, like, I wanted to call these when we were initially like preparing the show. I wanted to call them stasis pods because it sounds very science fictiony, but they're not in stasis. They're alive. They're
Now,
very much alive.
this process might sound a little bit morbid or potentially even like extreme because they're literally keeping these things alive outside of human bodies, but it's actually not as overblown as it might seem. Um, it's quite valuable to keep organs in this state because um, for organ transplantation, right? Traditionally, the method they used before warm perfusion or any other technologies like it was essentially an ice box. So you'd have your transplanted organ, say a kidney, lung, liver, heart, or whatever, and you'd essentially keep it in a saline solution inside of like a cold box that looks a lot like a cooler. And you'd have about 30 hours between the removal of your organ from this cold storage and transporting it to whatever clinic is
How many
performing
hours?
the surgery. About 30 hours
I
max.
don't think I don't know if they actually last that long. Yeah, that may be for the
It's
tougher
definitely
organs.
shorter. Like ideally it's 30 hours, but it could be like much less time. And you have like 30 out, well, just this limited amount of time to transport an organ from anywhere. And since organ donation is actually very specific, only certain like types of organs could really be used to transplant into a person safely. So, like, and they vary based by case by case. So you could have one match that's stored in, say, New York, and you have a recipient that needs that organ within like 12 hours in California. So you just have this mad dash to make it over. TransMedics, their organ care systems actually improve the efficacy of this process and like improve the amount of time an organ can survive outside well during transport.
Well,
And
let's talk about like the risks of doing it the old way, right? So
yeah,
there's the slides I'm showing you right now. They're coming from the these are 2022 Organ Procurement and Transplant Network (OPTN) data, and this is from the TransMedics investor presentation dated May 2023. So these are 2021 total deceased donors. I believe this is in the United States. Yeah, United States donors. So 14,000, almost 15,000 deceased donors, right?
mhm,
And there were, of these people, they try to recover as much as they can, right? But look at how much, all these red bars, these are the organs that go unutilized. So basically, less than half, a little bit more than half of the livers, 8,900 livers, got transplanted. That's actually pretty good. Only 4,100 heart transplants out of the almost 15,000 donor hearts were used. And even fewer lungs, only 2,692 lungs were used. That's a very embarrassingly small amount of them, right? So we're losing. So, like, if you're the kind of person who is like, yeah, I'm willing to do this, I've talked to my family about it. I want to be the person who gives another person a few extra years of life. And you're like, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and give my I'm willing to donate my organs to other people to help them out. And then they slap it in a cold box, and those cold boxes, they're not solid. By the time they get to the end of it, they can't see into them really. They can't tell how the organ is doing. There's no active monitoring on them. They're very, they're basically, there are issues from essentially getting freezer burned to just dying, right? So it's very, very sad. So, next slide is the reported utilization rates for donor organs for various kinds of transplants. We've got lungs, hearts, and two different kind of heart transplants. What they're basically showing here is their study data from their trials. So in their lungs trial, The cold storage percentage utilization was 18% in that group, and their OCS lungs used for transplants, uh, they were at 80%, 87% utilization. A huge, huge increase, and this means extra life for a lot of people. It's really, really quite amazing. And then the heart transplants, uh, they increased capability for utilization up to 81% from 28%. And then the the new kind of heart transplant, DCD transplant. This is, I believe, this is when they are taking them out of donors who uh, technically have not yet died. So they have to. So they are essentially unrecoverable, and their families have agreed to take them off life support. They have to stop the heart. I believe they have to stop the heart with drugs, call time of death, and then begin the transplant process. Before, those hearts were not used, and now they can be used, and at an even stronger rate than your typical heart. So these were used at an 89% rate. So they're having really, really good results with this.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't just get one of their boxes and cut a heart out, right? So don't don't try this at home, people.
No, TransMedics only sells their products to clinics and hospitals, so this isn't exactly a consumer good that you can just get off the shelf at like Walmart or something.
Well,
So,
that would be
or
cool, right? So yeah, just they look like copiers. They're not very big. You could probably keep one in your office, right next to the copy machine.
you'd have a lot of explaining though.
You'd have a lot of explaining to do, especially if you had an organ sitting in it,
Oh yeah,
beating, breathing, oozing.
yeah. Well, this organ care system is essentially uh, it is the core of the TransMedics business model, but it is not the only way. They don't just make their money by selling this technology. Um,
True, true.
TransMedics actually takes it a step beyond by uh, implementing a delivery system. Now, since organ transplant is a long, well, not a long,
Well, it
um,
can be long because, right, like you might be living in Buffalo, New York. You might match with someone in San Diego, California, right? So getting to you is a long journey.
right.
It's thousands of miles.
And noticing this kind of hole in, wait,
The hole in the delivery capabilities
yes,
for, yeah,
delivery capabilities, TransMedics has taken the opportunity to expand its business model from not just the preservation and, I guess, life support capabilities for uh, donated organs. They have also begun to expand into organ delivery and getting involved into organ procurement, which is essentially uh, I guess the body that maintains organs that have been donated through um, national services, and
so they work with those, they work closely with those organizations.
right.
Yeah.
So TransMedics has a national organ care system program where they essentially make deals with clinics across the United States, and through a network of delivery centers and charter aircraft and other chartered vehicles, distribute um, they distribute organ care systems, uh, well, organs via the organ care systems, and also provide logistical support and clinical support for transplant operations.
Yeah, so there's a really cool presentation that's out there if you want to sit for an hour and listen to it, where they discuss a lot of detail about the way this works. So basically, you'll have a set of doctors at a hospital in one place, a hospital in another place. The organ procurement organization will say, "Hey, you've got a match, right? And you're next in line. You're top of the list. Okay, well, what's the next step?" So any hospital can call up TransMedics and they can say, "Hey, we got a we got a person on in Tampa, Florida, and we need to get an organ from there to Sacramento, California. Can you help us with this?" And so what they will do is they will send in their crack team of doctors and support technicians and pilots, and they will come to your hospital, work with your doctors during the transplant operation. Your doctors will remove the heart, lung, liver, and then their doctors will put it into the OCS system, into the organ care system, right? It's a little bit misleading because when they say OCS, they mean everything. The system that they use, the airplanes, the people, everything is all OCS. But
Mm.
they put it into the box, right? And then they get it all hooked up, and they're experts at this, right? This way, the people at the hospital don't have to learn, how do I use this silly box? Where's the on button? How do I shift the brakes on this thing? And then they that means that those doctors can stay local, right? These specialists from TransMedics, they will fly across the country then, go to the next hospital, take the organ out of the box, and give it to the next transplant surgeons. And this means that, like, there are a lot of really cool things about this. Notably, that the doctors that are working on this don't have to be away from their hospital. So hospitals love this, right? So you've got a surgeon, and imagine that you're doing a heart transplant. Well, if you have to fly that surgeon across the country to monitor a heart in a box, they're going to be gone for maybe 8, 12 hours. And then by the time they get back, they could have been, working on other patients. And a lot of times these things happen, and they need to be done immediately. So they're putting off other work that they could be doing, other surgeries that had planned, and so it's kind of a surprise for them. So this is better. And there's one other really cool thing about this, and that this is that they don't really know the limits of how long you can keep an organ in the system, because so far everything that they have tried, um, they don't believe that they have found like an upper limit of how long they would keep them in there for practical purposes, right? Because they don't keep them for longer than a couple of, like, I think like the longest I saw was like 8 to 12 hours. So some of these trips are pretty long, but but I think they could keep them even longer, and they're going to do some studies and figure out how long they can do that. But key to it is that a they've got now their own air freight system. So when those doctors go get on an airplane, they own it, and they're not trying to like rush and try to charter something from another agency that might be doing something else, something more profitable, right? So let's talk about that.
Right.
This is
So,
the latest news, by the way, like, because they were chartering until just a few months ago. So what happened recently, Rigel?
so TransMedics as a company has been in a bit of a expanding mood lately. They've been buying up property from other medical technology companies to improve their perfusion technology. They've been looking into a next generation OCS platform, but most notably, at least in my opinion, is the acquisition of Summit Air Freight. Or no, Summit Aviation, my apologies. Now, Summit Aviation is essentially a like aircraft logistics center that has been operating out of America for a good long while now, and The intention with this acquisition and TransMedics actually taking the effort to not only acquire the assets of Summit Aviation, including aircraft and facilities, but they're also keeping on essentially the entire team and all of the staff, and notably the pilots of Summit Aviation, including their flight school, so they also are maintaining Summit's capability to train new pilots. They're taking on all of these resources in an effort to create the nation's first transplant dedicated air freight company. And this is essentially TransMedics Aviation uh, division now, I guess. I'm not sure completely how the management is working, but
Yeah, it's a little bit vague.
aviation,
I mean, they haven't completely disclosed how they're running it yet. I believe the old CEO is staying on as vice president of TransMedics Aviation for now,
mhm, that is
which is
correct.
great. I mean, that's fantastic. It's good to have some seasoned people in there. And I believe TransMedics Aviation came in with, sorry, I believe they have 10 aircraft right now. Their goal is to have 10 to 15 aircraft fully operational by the first half of 2024.
Yeah. So far, the merger has not quite yet closed. They expect things to wrap up around the end of quarter three, 2023,
Well, I guess that
but
was a couple of days ago, so maybe it's done by now.
maybe. But they were also, TransMedics has also um, described a bit of a ramping down period for Summit, allowing them to essentially finish up any of the work that they already had contracted or anything like that. And before they transfer over to 100% of operations being related to the distribution of organ care systems and other related projects for TransMedics.
Cool. And they also have dispatch centers, right? They have one major dispatch center. I don't know if they have others.
Yes, they have one major dispatch center located in Massachusetts and about eight or nine spread across the country. I'm not completely sure about the dispatch centers though, but they are working to bolster that logistics infrastructure as well because TransMedics wants to be very involved in the logistical support for their aircraft so that hospital they can kind of maintain that edge of allowing hospitals a lot of ease of use compared to other organ procurement methods that have been used in the past.
Yeah, and I really like this. I mean, this is very similar to Amazon's decision to make their own truck fleet, right? And have their own distribution warehouses. In this case, you don't really need a distribution warehouse. We have, the hospitals, and it's not that like the you just have like one or two people and the box to take on the plane. So you can use fairly small planes, but you still need, you need clearance at airports. You need an airport you can use, and you need to have an air freight system that's going to basically jump when you say jump, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so this gives them their ability to not only deliver high quality service as fast as possible to hopefully reduce the number of unutilized organs, but also it allows them to expand, right, and buy more aircraft as the utilization starts to stabilize. So their eventual goal is to aim for 10,000 organ transplants per year via the National Organ Procurement and organ. What is? They really shouldn't use all these acronyms. The organ
What
care
they're
system over the next 5 years, right? So 10,000 over the next 5 years. I think that this is doable. One of the interesting things that they talked about, because there was a question about this um, to one of their leaders, and they basically said, "Well, like, are the wait lists going to go down for things like hearts and livers and lungs eventually as you start to work through these wait lists more quickly?" And the answer from them was, no, actually, we don't think so. And I was like, right, that makes sense. Because right now, there are a lot of people who are making the determination that, because a transplant's not without risk, right?
Mhm.
You're taking a risk.
Yeah.
You, yeah, and when you are getting a high quality organ that you that has good clinical prospects to it, that you think is going to work well, that's going to encourage more people to want to do transplants,
Hmm.
right? And as people who are donors start knowing, because I don't think most people know, like I didn't know. I
Hmm.
think most people thought that if they donated an organ, it would get used, but that's not the case, right? So if you're a donor and you're like, oh, I know about this stuff, I know it's not probably going to get used, you're probably even less likely to choose to donate. But now, like if they can actually improve the technology to the point where, we have very high utilization rates, lots of people are getting saved, and these organ donor lists are starting to hit the most, uh, the people who need it the most, the ones who we can give the most life back to. I think that's going to encourage a lot more activity in this area, and it's going to be good for insurers, right? So the
Hmm.
money is there on both sides. The doctors and hospitals like it. TransMedics profits off of it. Society makes society, gets an extra person, right, for longer, and the insurance companies, they earn money out, right, because uh, yeah, so yeah, I think it's good all around. This is a really, really cool company. And if you
Hmm.
want to see video of these hearts beating and the lungs beating, go on over to transmedics.com. And there are samples over there that you can see. And they also have some stuff of them getting on the plane over on your favorite video site that I will not name, that we are probably on right now.
We'd also like to recommend the investors call if you really want to learn a bit more about TransMedics current plans. Uh, they've got a lot in store. You can find that by just checking their website and looking into the investors page.
Yeah, the
And
recent
yeah.
conference call was really, really good, actually. They did
Hmm.
not they did not focus on analyst questions, and even the analysts they didn't ask awful questions, but they spent a long time discussing the system itself, so that was really, really good.
Hmm.
Well, that's it for today, everyone. As always, do your own investing research, don't trust what we say, and we'll have more commentary and maybe more spooky extracorporeal mad scientist hijinks later on.
Hmm.
Have a wonderful day and take care.
Have a good one. See ya.